Hi, and welcome to the Eh-Nalysis match review, where we take interesting matches in the world of First and provide an in-depth analysis of everything we noticed while watching it. Today's review comes from the Lonestar Central Regional in Texas, where we have the number 1 and number 2 alliances clashing for victory in the finals. On the Red Alliance, we have Team 118, the Robonauts, their first pick 1477 Texas Torque, and the 24th pick 5526 T-Cats. Blue features the stacked lineup of 3847 Spectrum, 3997 the Screaming Chickens, and 5829 Audiobots. So let's jump right into autonomous mode, where both alliances do hit their gears, both red and blue. 118 activates the hopper and begins to shoot, and Spectrum and Audiobots cross fairly far into the field, able to start cycling gears very quickly. So coming right out of autonomous mode, we see that team number 118 has been able to hit 33 kilopascals in autonomous mode, thus 33 points ahead. This is the case since blue and red have both tied in mobility points and in their rotor in autonomous points. So this is going to be pretty important for the Red Alliance as they move on throughout the match, as it's going to be able to help them offset any deficits that they may have in a rotor or a hang. Meanwhile, on the Blue Alliance, we see that two robots are fairly close to the feeder station as they have driven further in autonomous mode, and we'll see how they capitalize on that saved time in the teleop portion of the game. And right off the bat, we see a coordinated effort for the Blue Alliance to knock over the two close hoppers so that it's a lot harder for 118 to pick up balls as they have to use their intake. We also see team number 1477 go the long route around the airship where there is a blind zone to avoid the potential defense coming from 3997. It also seems to be that Spectrum's trying to activate the far middle hopper to prevent 118 from accessing easy fuel as well. So following 1477 in that blind spot, we see that they get a little bit hung up on that wall, but they are able to recover quickly, while 118 goes for that fuel on the far left, with Spectrum trying to defend them. At this point, 118 is just looking to finish off their 40 kPa and get those extra bonus 20 points. Meanwhile, Blue Alliance has been largely focused on playing fuel defense against 118 and gear defense against 1477. And right now we see Torque finish their gear while 118 finishes their 40 kPa, and they now have a significant lead because of the 20-point bonus. We're going to pause here for a second and talk a little bit about why this match is so interesting. Right now the gear score is 2-2. Red and blue both scored one in autonomous and one in teleop. But Blue Alliance here is going to do something interesting. They're going to withhold scoring any of their gears until the last possible second. A specific variation of this method was shown at the Durham College event when Alliance number 2 and Alliance number 3 were playing in the semifinals. During that event, Alliance number 2, captained by 1285, put an interesting strategy into play where they would place all of their gears on the pegs but not spin up their rotors until the last possible second. This specific strategy was designed to create some chaos behind the opposing alliance's glass and impede their decision-making during the match. The Blue Alliance decided to take this strategy to another level where they don't even place the gears during the match until the last possible second. This essentially makes it much more difficult to be able to tell how many rotors the opposing alliance has. This opens up the Red Alliance to making crucial errors like hanging too early or not blocking a critical gear to finish off one of the rotors. So while the scoreboard may say 75 to 184 for red, blue actually has 40 points kind of hidden from the Red Alliance as they have their extra gear for their second rotor. So in reality, the real score is 115 to 184 for red. So back into the match, we see that Spectrum is using their gear ground pickup to receive a gear and score it, as is 118. But at this point, blue is actually ahead by one gear compared to the Red Alliance. But here's where things start to go south for the Blue Alliance. We see that the Screaming Chickens have a bumper failure and they are forced to be disabled. This is obviously pretty detrimental to the Blue Alliance, as not only are they down 64 points, they're down a robot that can score 50 points in a hang. Also by this point, red has equalized the gear count 3-3 and soon will overtake blue. Nonetheless, we see Blue using another unique strategy, with Spectrum stealing one of the gears from the red gear loading zone. By this point, the gear count is now 5-3 for the Red Alliance, as Spectrum struggles to score their gear that they just picked up. As the time winds down, it's important to talk a little bit about Audiobots, who has been following around 118 and attempting to play defense. While their defense may not be locked down and shut them out, it is definitely causing 118 some issues and slowing them down. We'll pause once again to recognize the strength in the Red Alliance and their decision making. They are actually at this point one gear away from hitting their third rotor, and 118, realizing this, goes for the extra balls to seal the deal for this match. That one extra gear coming from 1477, as it is currently in their robot and they're making their way to score it. Another important thing to notice is that 5526 on the Red Alliance is already ready to line up for their hang. This takes out any of the risk of not hitting their hang, especially when they're so far ahead. And if we look at the Blue Alliance airship right now, this is when they start placing their gears at the last possible second to try and even the score. But with 3 robots coming up to hang, it's too little too late for the Blue Alliance, and the Red Alliance remains victorious over this finals match number 2 at Lonestar Central Regional.